September 12th, 2022 meeting of the West Clermont Local School District School Board. Mr. Giuffre, would we have a
Roll call.
roll call? I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
It's okay. Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Miss Delaney, sorry.
Present.
Ms. Brinkman?
Present.
Mr. Chumley? Mr. Patton?
Present.
Thank you.
We believe Mr. Chumley's on his way. We don't have anything official, but he should be here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have anyone wishing to speak this evening? No cards?
No.
No. Okay. Superintendent business, 4.01 personnel.
Sure. Dr. Fultz has the personnel update.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the board. Mrs. Adams, Mrs. Giuffre. In front of you is the personnel agenda for September 12th, 2022. On the agenda today, we have the retirement of Paula Blatt, a teacher who's been with us for 27 years. This is her 27th year of teaching. And Holly Brown, a teacher at Merwin, who's also been here for 31 years. So we wish them well in their retirement at the end of the school year. We also have the resignations of one teacher, 2 paraprofessional aides, and 1 custodian. On the agenda, we have the proposed hiring of 3 full-time paraprofessional aides and 2 custodians. We also have the proposed transfer of Sarah Evans from the van driver to our new enrollment administrative assistant. She was filling a vacancy downstairs. We're also very happy when we see our teachers work to grow themselves professionally. We have a proposed approval for the adjustment of salary placement of 5 teachers due to their continued professional growth through college coursework, so that always makes us happy. On the agenda, we have the proposed approval for supplemental contracts for the evaluation review team, multiple advisors, teacher leaders, Saturday school workers, TAC coordinators, multiple coaches. And also included in this agenda is the proposed approval for requested unpaid leaves of absence, the hiring of classified substitutes, and multiple school volunteers and student teachers. Finally, in the work beyond the contract session, included in this agenda are the proposed approval for payments for those individuals who participated in CPI training, our wellness champions, spelling bee organizer, Hope Squad leaders, Words on the Walls organizers, web leaders, and our advanced qualitative reasoning developers. I respectfully request that you approve the personnel agenda as presented.
You've heard the recommendations. Our motion.
So I'll make a motion.
And second.
Second.
Mrs. Delaney, any discussion?
I have 2 things. I wanted to make sure that you received the email that I had sent to you this afternoon regarding the agenda.
Yes.
Just making sure you received it. What is the words on the wall?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
And maybe even Dr. Ray could speak to it if you had any further questions. It's in an effort to continue to beautify the middle school. And so we have some of our art teachers who are working with a student leadership group to paint murals and other things across the building. And so they're giving their time over winter break to help support students in that work.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley? Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
And Ms. Delaney?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next on our agenda is the Pike overnight field trip. But before I have Mrs. Preston say anything, I'm going to go off script for just a minute and welcome Mrs. Giuffre to our table and Mrs. Wolf. Both are representing the treasurer's office today. They are the people behind the scene that make all the magic happen. And a special note with Mrs. Wolf, you have been kind of the glue that's held the entire treasurer's group together. As we've had some rotating seats, you have the institutional knowledge and have really done a great job, like keeping everything under control, keeping all the things moving, especially the paychecks, because we know that's the most important. And we appreciate you really just continuing to grow as a team. And Carolyn, we appreciate you coming in and your expertise in e-finance, your expertise in systems management and change management has really led to a lot of great advancement in our district. So thank you both tonight for stepping in for Mr. Romano. I won't say anything about you're like the better looking version or anything. I won't say that because he might get mad. But we really do appreciate you both being here tonight and all that you do. It's always behind the scenes. You don't get a lot of the glory like we get here every Monday night, but we want to make sure that you know that you are appreciated and valued in our district for all the years of service and time.
Thank you.
Okay, now back to regular scheduled show here. Clough Pike overnight field trip.
Good evening. This overnight field trip request comes from Clough Pike. This is a long-standing overnight field trip to Camp Camel Guard. It's similar to field trips that many of our other elementaries take, where students participate in leadership development activities and opportunities to get some hands-on learning related to social studies and science, as well as to participate in some literacy activities. So this field trip request is for the end of October, leaving on October 26th and returning on October 28th. Our fifth grade team of teachers, as well as some approved parents, are those who escort the students. So, any questions about that? Are we gonna do both field trips together or one at a time?
One at a time.
Okay, so I respectfully request that you approve the Clough Pike overnight field trip as presented.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Mrs. Franklin, a second.
Second.
Mrs. Delaney, any discussion?
I hope for no rain.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They typically go on this field trip in the spring, if I remember correctly. I know when my kids were at Clough, they
They've
went in the
gone
spring.
back and
Yeah.
forth. I think with COVID and when the field trips were put off altogether, it sort of changed the rhythm of when things have happened. But I think they feel like this fits better as a springboard into some of the things they're going to be teaching and an opportunity to build on that experience throughout the year.
And hopefully better weather.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay.
Dufresne?
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley, Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
and Ms. Delaney.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is a request for an overnight field trip for the West Clermont High School boys basketball team.
Can you move your microphone closer to you?
Oh,
Sorry.
absolutely. I can also use my teacher voice if necessary. Or the voice I sometimes have to use with my children at home, maybe. So the next field trip request is a request of the West Clermont High School boys basketball team, an overnight field trip to participate in basketball scrimmages and opportunities to play some teams that aren't necessarily right in the Southwest Ohio area. It's to play Hilliard Darby and Bishop Reedy, I believe is how you pronounce that, high school. There has been a little bit of development today in that originally parents were going to would be responsible for getting students there, but we have been able to work to secure busing for those students. So if you noticed a change in the agenda, that's why. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. Any questions about that? Okay, great. I request you approve the overnight field trip as presented.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Patton, in a second. I'll second it.
Okay. Ms.
Any discussion? Okay.
Ms. Delaney,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley, Mr. Patton,
Yes.
and Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4.04 is our introduction of our West Clermont Quality Profile release. The state report card information is due to come out September 15th, and it's a tradition with many high-performing school districts across the state of Ohio to also release a complimentary quality profile that really highlights the values of the community and the celebrations that we want to look back a year and really just see the growth and the development of students, staff, and as well as our community partnerships. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Gephardt to hit some highlights.
Yeah, you have a copy in front of you, and when you take a look at this, and anytime you have a publication like this, of this magnitude, there's a lot of revisions that go through this. We've been refining this for months. And what we have, I think, is a really, really good representation of On the Rise with relationships and innovation, student-centered empowerment. And as you look through it, there's just a lot of accomplishments across the board that when we talked this morning, I said, we didn't have to really go out and look for these. They were there, and that's showing an organization moving in the right direction. And just a lot of hard work from our staff, and from our administrators, from our community, from our students. It takes a team effort to get the scores that we're getting. I know when I came here 6 years ago, believe it or not, we talked a lot about academic performance in our teaching and learning department. As you can see right off the bat, some of the things, the accomplishments that we are moving in the right direction for our academics at all levels. And that's a test to a lot of hard work behind the scenes, a lot of hard work and with student achievement. Obviously, those are the things that happen in the classroom. You can't prove student achievement if you don't have it in the classroom. And getting the resources to our teachers from our teaching and learning department, I think is imperative to see scores like this. When we came in, we were below state levels across the board at the secondary level. Now we're thriving there. So a lot of congratulations, and we're not where we want to be, but we're going to get to where we want to be. And when we get to that top 25%. So I think you look at that, and the programs offered that were throughout the district are really big highlights for us. And following our Portrait of a Graduate, our North Star, and supporting the pathways in which we go into, and support through all grade levels. The recognition that our students and staff, this award-winning opportunities for our students as well as our staff to be recognized, and it's always good to be recognized for the hard work that you put in. And so I think we did a really good job highlighting that. The partnerships that you have with community, imperative in some of the things that we do. A lot of hard work from WC Your Future and with our students getting recognized as well. Our financial outlook is in there as well, and I think that that's an important piece as well, because when you look at per pupil spending, and we're still in the lower end compared to similar districts, and I think that's a really important statistic, or the number that we have to continually talk about over the next few years as we continue to work through the 5-year forecast and looking at, what is our per pupil spending, and we still are one of the lowest with similar districts, and I think that's something we'll continually talk about. It doesn't mean our students go without, but we are very, very cognizant of the money and the finances that we do have. And of course, thank you to the Board of Education is in there as well. Got your mug shots in there, and so thank you guys for that, for all that you guys do as well.
glamour shots.
The glamour shots. And then on the back page is a reminder of a couple of events that are coming up. As you know, we've talked about these, and we talk about community engagement, and we talk about our town halls. We have a very busy week next week with our town halls Thursday night. It's our focus area. They're kind of regional now. High school, middle school is a focus point for us as far as getting our parents and community members from those areas, and we'll focus in on all the different schools that we go to, whether it be WT or Merwin or in the middle school back down in December. But next week we'll have the town hall. Hoping to have a good turnout for that, and we'll continually push that out to get our members back in for that. And I think it's a really, really great activity for us to go through. And really, we get a lot of great feedback and data from our community members, our staff members, the parents, and so we'll continue that. So we've been preparing for that, and we'll be ready to roll for that. Then Friday night, we have Bring Back the Bell. The bell, I just got a picture. I can send it out, but it has been delivered to the high school. So there's actually going to be a bell there. So it'll be really, really tough to have that. So we have some things lined up for that evening. The parade, I've already talked to you guys a little bit about that in the board update, but the parade followed by some activities. The location of the activities will be in that grass area outside the fence on the scoreboard end. We'll have tents set up, some inflatables for the kids after the parade, some food and some things, and really sign the welcome back alumni. As we start this move to bring our alumni back, I've met with some different people about getting the alumni database going, so we continually push the numbers. It's going to be a slow process. We're not going to have 5,000 people in year one, so we're going to continue that process and hopefully double it each year. I think that would be something realistic for us to be able to do. If we could double each year the first 5 years, that will be something that would be very, very good for us as we move forward with that. A couple other things, volunteer system, Give Me Five, we're continually promoting that. Not where we want to be with that, but we're going to continually get that out into the buildings and be able to get more parents into the buildings and offer our teachers and our students supports that are needed. The other piece is I've been working with some trademark language. We have a new contract with BSN, and with BSN, we've always talked about the trademark. The only things we have trademarked are the high school, the wolf, in the middle school, the claws, the name, the fangs, all kinds of things, but our elementaries are not trademarked. But we're working on language for that to have affiliated and non-affiliated members to be able to work with us, and that we'll be able to open that up to some of our local businesses and with agreements with them that BSN does not have exclusive rights to our trademark. Our trademark is ours, and we have to put in some parameters, and we have to put in some regulations so that we control it, so that there's not things out there. And it's an annual thing that you have to re-up every year. So you'll start seeing some trademark language from me, some of the updates, and we're going to get moving with that, working with Dan, Carolyn, and with Chuck. And so I think it's really important that we have this so that we can have some of our local businesses as well and support them, as well as them supporting us. So that you'll start to see that down the road a little bit. I think that's it. Amy.
Well, and I just want to say thank you, Jeffrey Ryle, for continuing to be like the lead storyteller of the school district. This will be made available in everybody's mailboxes. It'll be coming soon, so everyone can look forward to that. It'll also be available online, and we're hoping that it gets some water cooler conversation at the bus stop, wherever. But we are very proud of the brand and our storytelling, so thank you for all of your efforts to ship on a product like this. It is a lot of work. And one final thing that I'll just say about our performance that we're really proud of is that, we spend in the bottom 6% of the state. We know we are low per pupil spending. We're performing in about the middle of the state. That's a strong return on investment when you look at money in and investments in with a return. We obviously are not satisfied with that. We are not going to settle for that, but we do think it is something to be very proud of and to build upon. So, any comments or questions about the quality profile? Thank you. All right, well, up next, Dr. Ray has hit the ground running as the new middle school principal, and I think tonight is really the first night you're getting to see her, and with her, she's brought a couple team members as well as some students that are going to share with us a little bit of just a student voice message from the middle school, and then we're going to invite the students to come join us up here for the remainder of the meeting. So welcome.
Thank you, and good evening to everybody, Board of Education, district office staff, community members, and this wonderful West Clermont Middle School group that is going to showcase our web program. Our web program is a program that is interconnectivity between our 6th graders coming in and our 8th grade leaders, and it is a wonderful program. One of probably the most nerve-wracking things for mainly parents, but also students that are coming from the elementary school to the middle school, is that change in getting to a larger place where everything is condensed. And this web program and the staff who oversee it make the transition a year-long transition, and one that is wonderful for the 6th graders. On a personal note, before I turn it over, I would like to thank you for having me join this wonderful family. It's been a great experience, and I look forward to many years to come in West Clermont. And I'm going to turn it over to Don Jacobs, Assistant Principal, who is the administrator who oversees the web programming and the transition. So, Don?
Thank you, Dr. Ray. And without taking all the thunder that you're about to hear, which is the most positive thunder you're going to hear, I will say that when Mr. Overby helped us secure the funding for the web training, Zach Gamble and I were roommates at the training facility for what that's worth. And when I talk to the young kids about it, it's something that I believe in my heart. There are a lot of good things going on at the middle school, but in my heart I believe that the web program could be the single most important thing that's there for those kids. I don't want to say any more because I want to have them tell the story. Zach Gamble. Let's go. And friends.
Hello, everybody. I am Zach Gamble, former math teacher turned into Dean of Students this year at the middle school. Very excited to be here. Thank you guys in advance for everything that you guys do. Very, very enticing conversations you guys are having. I'm happy you guys are handling that. So thank you for that in advance. So I am here to talk about, like my two colleagues said, literally my favorite program at the middle school by far. It's called Where Everybody Belongs, and it's WEB, Web for short. It's the best in the world, and I'm here to tell you why it is that way. And I have to go back a little bit, and for all of our sanity, thankfully, I had a wonderful conversation with a respected colleague whose opinion I admire very greatly. And because I'm a math teacher, my initial thoughts when I was asked to talk about web was, I should do some data. And I am not doing data. Save me some sanity, maybe you guys a little sanity as well. But instead, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story just about why web is so great and just a little background about it. And to do that, I have to go back in time slightly. I'm an Oak Hills High School graduate, and I still live over there. So there is something special going on here at West Clermont Middle School because, 40 minutes every day, both ways, it adds up. It adds up, seriously. But going back in time to when I was in high school, a senior in high school, I was asked to join something called Kilt Crew. And I went to the first informational meeting, and much to my dismay, no kilts. So that was sad. But what it turned out to be was a bunch of seniors who wanted to volunteer would be placed into freshman homerooms so we could talk with them, help them develop socially, emotionally, get them on the right track. Coming from smaller middle schools that Oak Hill in some places does have, to a massive, massive high school. Scary. I remember being scared on my first day at Oak Hills High School. But what I took from that was a newfound confidence because I'm a little bit nervous to be talking to you guys. You guys are important. The confidence that I did find from being in a program like that has stuck with me to now where I can stand in front of you guys and tell you about a program that's just like that we can implement in our own schools. It's amazing. And to transfer into what the web program looks like, my role in the program is just a web coordinator, which means I have the pleasure of training these amazing students like this. And there's 67 more of them that I wish could all tell you their story. They're amazing kids, and in a few minutes you're going to be able to hear them talk about web. But continuing on, just thinking about one of the most important things that I think web does is they meet the 8th grade web leaders where they are. And obviously you guys probably know this. Part of our job as teachers and other people in the building is to educate our kids that are in front of us. And academically, of course, academics. But in addition to that, they have to develop as humans, socially, emotionally, and things like that. And not all of them are always in the same place with that. Some of them have confidence, straight A's. Some of them are a little shy and might get C's. But something that the web program does, we invite all those kids to apply. You don't have to be a straight A student to be in web. Everybody has things that they can bring to 6th graders that might be shy or super scared, where they can make them feel comfortable. People in band, people on the football team. The list goes on forever. But all those people are in web. So when those kids come in, they're like, that person's like me. That person's like me. And that is so helpful for when sixth graders come in. I see that all the time. It happens all the time. And the fact that I get to see it on the front lines, that's why I'm here, talking to you guys. I want to be here. It's amazing that, and everybody should know, and obviously I'll get to thanking you guys for everything you do to make that continue to happen. But just continuing on, obviously it makes our eighth graders into just more amazing, confident human beings, whether they're shy, whether they're not. It makes the good kids better, and it makes, well, they're all good kids. But you know what I'm saying. The good kids have a chance to grow. It's differentiation, but socially, emotionally. We do it for all kids. They're all better because of web. It's amazing. And additionally, just a brief story. I'll tell you a brief story about. They can tell you what it's like to be a student in web. I'll tell you what I see for some staff members. How is staff affected by web? And I'll just give you a quick caveat story about a staff member that I love dearly, and I've got the okay to share this story. But this staff member who I worked with, who I adore, they are amazing. But I would say whether they are in a good mood or bad mood, it's the same, like, face. Just kind of not sure. And this was actually last year. I was walking down because on one of the first days of school, the eighth grade web leaders will be in a sixth grade classroom to help the classroom teacher and just be present for sixth graders on their first day. It's huge to do that. And I was walking down as I'm running around, kids need this, kids need that, I'm ready to do it all. I see this teacher, as I'm walking past, she walks out of her room and she has this look on her face, just like that. And I'm like, uh-oh. And she points into her classroom like this, and she says, I love this. And I'm like, oh, first of all, sigh of relief. But when it's hard, that teacher that I'm speaking of, who's amazing, by the way, kids love her, she's amazing. You don't always get that reaction out of her when she's not huge on change. And all of a sudden you got 2 extra kids. What am I supposed to do with these kids? They're just here to help? What does that mean? But she comes out here with the face, and she's telling me how much she loves this. That is so important for staff members to feel supported that way. Not only does it make the kids better for them, it makes the kids even more confident to help us help them. And what more can you say? It's amazing. I love every single aspect of it. And part of what I love about it is that I get to work with kids like Caitlin and Cameron, and I brought them along here so they can give you their own little side of the story. Cameron?
Hi, my name is Cameron Jordan. I'm a web leader for many reasons. One of the biggest being that I believe that the web program is one of the most impactful programs we have at West Clermont Middle School. But the biggest reason I decided to join is because I want all the new incoming sixth graders to feel welcome at West Clermont Middle School. I want them to feel like they are a part of something very important. And if they ever need help, they have many valuable resources, and they go to anybody that they need help with. Everyone has a different home life. Everyone goes through many different things. We can't judge. We all go through different things. But everyone deserves to be a part of something special. Whether it's web or just having a great group of friends at West Clermont Middle School. I want to make them feel as they can go to anybody, and they can feel however they want, and they can be whoever they please at West Clermont. And I want them to feel like they can enjoy showing up every day with a smile on their face, no matter what time it is, especially if they're grumpy in the morning. My personal experience with web, when I was a sixth grader, I had 2 web leaders. They were the most impactful people in my life at sixth grade in the time being. They made me feel welcome and that I could come into that classroom and laugh and just have a great time. And it really inspired me to be just like them, and if not like them, better than them. They're really impactful people, and I want to be just like them, and I want to make all the sixth graders feel like they have valuable resources and they're very welcome to the school. They brought me passion to become a web leader and to help kids just like me who was scared and little as a sixth grader on the first day of school. This is all about the web program at West Clermont Middle School, and this is why I love doing what I do.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Neal, and I am an 8th grade web leader. I'm in love with being a web leader and have been the second I got accepted. When I was in 6th grade, I was lost and completely confused until I got introduced to web, where everyone belongs. Our web leaders helped us develop strategies not only for school, but also for our lives outside of school. They taught us ways to adapt to an environment, even though it might have been hard. My web leader would answer any question to the best of her ability, even though it might have been difficult. That is why I wanted to become a web leader. To be that person that 6th graders can count on and look up to. Web leaders aren't just silly students who are told to do certain activities with 6th graders. We are leaders of the pack, and people who can be looked up to in the entire school. The first time I met my 6th graders, I was nervous on levels that no one can explain. I was scared that students were going to teach me like any other student in the building. But instead, they listened to me, listened to my instructions, and followed them completely. Web is one of my favorite things that got added to WCMS because it is well needed. We need students who are willing to go above and beyond for the school, which is what we're here for. I love helping my 6th graders. On the 6th graders' first day of school, they were nervous, and then some of us web leaders, actually all of us, we got them pumped up and began to realize they became way more comfortable with the school. Web is a very important part of the school and would make a difference without it. Even though some of us might not be well known around the school, we are still a very important part of it. Thank you.
Of course, thank you first to Cameron and Caitlin for being here. Thanks to their parents for bringing them. Appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Just like I said before, thank you to everyone in here for continuing to obviously help all the schools in the district, but the middle school we are churning and burning over there. We are working our tails off to make it the best middle school in the state, and I'm happy to be part of that. These guys, Dr. Ray, Don Jacobs, we're killing it, seriously. So thank you for continuing to do that. Another shout out to Mike Overby, just because I know you really went to bat for us when we wanted web, and here we are. So thank you for that. Thank you, Ryan Patton, for being in my interview randomly when I got interviewed at Amelia Middle School. Thank you for that. Thank you to the counseling department at West Clermont Middle School, by the way, which you guys I'm sure have heard, we have one of the best counselors in the state, if not the best, and 2 others that are also amazing, but they really, really put this program on their back when we first got it, and they deserve a huge shout out. They work their rear ends off every day, and especially for web. So I appreciate them to the end of the earth. Seriously, they are amazing. And last but not least, to the staff that I love so much. That's why I drive 45 minutes to work every day. I said 40 and then 45. It's getting worse. But I drive a little ways. Those staff that I love, that I do this for, the reason I drive, we couldn't continue to do web without them too. We need them to support us sending kids to their room, splitting up into groups when we have the 8th graders meet with the 6th graders. We have some of the best staff in the district, no doubt, no offense to anybody else. But I love those people. I love you guys for doing what you do, talking about trademarks and whatnot. Please keep doing that. And thank you for having me here. Have a good night.
Zach, we thank you for stepping up as a leader and taking on a new challenge and taking your influence beyond the walls of your classroom and the web program, so we're very grateful for you. And I want to invite Cameron and Caitlin to come up and join us. The board and our team has really made a commitment to ensuring that student voice is a part of everything that we do, and we're getting ready to talk about 2 topics, one being middle school start time, and one being students showing up for school, which, based on what you guys said, is something that matters to you. So I'd just like you guys to weigh in. So just, you're welcome at the table, just hang out, and I will turn it over now. Let's see, are we starting with you?
Yes.
You first? Okay, so let's hear a little bit, update from the middle school. As you all know, we studied in the CAC last year the start time of middle school. And there was a recommendation brought to you in the spring to recommend that we change the start time of West Clermont Middle School. We knew that it would not be possible for this school year, and so we committed to putting things into place early to investigate all the feasibility, from traffic to cost to impact or ripple effect across the district when you change something that happens in the middle. So Mr. LaFata is going to share with you our progress. And this is really just, tonight is a big heads up of this is going to be the topic of meetings for the next several.
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations, Cameron. Cameron plays for our baseball team occasionally. He's on another team, but we use him occasionally, and we used him this weekend. He helped us win some games. He's a catcher, which makes him probably the smartest person at this table. And a really good hitter, throws right, bats right, great hitter. I'd like to have him full-time on our team. His brother plays for us. And I'm recruiting you, as you can tell. But he's a very good player. And he speaks highly of the middle school, and I can tell you his brother Lucas and I have some awesome conversations on the bucket between innings in the dugout. I can't repeat them all, but they're great conversations. So they're really good kids, good family. So, pleasure seeing you here. All right, so as Mrs. Adams stated, the Reading community, West Clermont, sorry, I'm going back in time a little bit. West Clermont Community Action Committee made a recommendation to you to change or consider changing the middle school start time for this year. So what I'm going to talk to you tonight about are three next steps. First being the traffic study. We contracted with the Kleininger Group. They were recommended by all of our architects to do a traffic study. They began September 8th. It's a comprehensive study. I'll read to you what they're going to do, their scope of work. They're going to collect turning movement and count data at 4 existing middle school driveways on Clough Pike, Amelia Olive Branch Road, the intersection of Clough Pike, Amelia Olive Branch Road, and the intersection of Clough Pike and Buxton Road during school arrival and dismissal peak periods. Traffic counts will be up to 3 hours a day in duration and last a week. Then they're going to estimate the arrival and dismissal peak hour traffic volumes of all those intersections for the specific times beginning and ending of school. And finally, they're going to perform a capacity analysis at the intersection of Clough Pike and Buxton Road during school arrival and dismissal peak hours under the conditions we set forth for the starting time, and in addition to see the impact of car traffic at the high school. They'll have the study to us by October 3rd, and we'll have that available to the cabinet and to you at the next board meeting. They, as I said, they started September 8th, and he has kept up with communicating with me almost every other day what they've been doing. So if you see people out there on Clough Pike or Buxton beginning of school at the end of the day, that's what they're doing during traffic counts. Clermont County will only be involved if what we do impacts traffic severely on any of those intersections or roads. So the definition of severely is pretty broad. In talking to Craig at Kleininger's, usually schools do not impact a county in any serious way. But that could happen, and if that happens, then our next step would be talk to Clermont County Traffic for a remedy or a long-term solution. He doesn't anticipate it's going to affect it, but I just want to let you know Clermont County could be a factor in this. We'll see. Next is Peterman Bus. Peterman was given the parameters of the start and stop times, and also the parameters of keeping a 3-tier bus system. 3-tier bus system is where not all elementaries are on the same start and stop time. They're varied. So Peterman is now doing a route study. We hope to have that by September 23rd. We will look at it as a cabinet. We will make proposals to their proposal, changes, tweaks, whatever, give it back to them, and then they'll send it back. Hopefully, we'll agree on the final proposal. A really important part of this, though, is on September 23rd, when I get the study, I'm going to give it to the treasurer, Dan, so that he can put this in the forecast. If there is an increase in cost, he'll put it in the 5-year forecast, and we'll have that data to fall back on too. Next is the impact study.
There might not, oh, is there another slide? There might not be a third
There
slide.
were only
Maybe you
two.
just have
Only
to
two.
go off your thoughts.
Oh, there it is.
It is?
Impact.
Oh, it should have been a third
It
slide.
is
okay.
on there,
Okay.
sorry. There's impact, private schools, special education routes, homeless student transportation, and athletic transportation. We won't know the impacts until we see Peterman's proposal for the routes and the time. So all of that will be put together in a report, and you'll get that report, you'll have access to that. Hopefully, Mrs. Adams' deadline is, well, the beginning of October, and it's ambitious and it's focused, and all these groups are on board.
This analysis will give us an idea to be able to look significantly at the financial piece as well as the impacts, as he's mentioned. There's some that are listed up there, but there could be more. You just don't know until you get into real specifics, and so that's what we'll be determining. And we also have brainstormed that if you can make a change in the district, and we know that there's going to be impact that ripples out, what other things might we be able to get some added value from? So we've been looking at the minutes that students are in school. We've been looking at the teacher day, the work day, as well as collaboration time. So we're trying to bring a solution that, if affordable and feasible, can actually benefit something greater than just the start of time of school. And so that's our goal, is in the next work session and then into the October meeting would be to give all that time and dedication to this big decision. And Mr. Romano will figure it into the 5-year forecast so we can see the impact over time, so that we are making a very informed decision. So
I have another topic that's not on the agenda. It actually came up today. There's an ambitious Duke project that's going to take place at Summerside Elementary. There's a gas line underneath 275 that is a 1970s gas line, and it needs to be replaced. It's not failing, but it needs to be replaced. So to get access to that gas line, Duke has to go bore under 275 from two sides. Our side being one, and the subdivision side on the other side of the highway. So they've approached us with a proposal. I met with a representative today. Mrs. Adams couldn't make the meeting, but I briefed her today, and I also called Dan Romano. The gist of the program is this. We have acreage. If you look at Summerside Elementary, if you're driving up to the right, Summerside has a nature trail. But then there's a large amount of wooded area just past that nature trail that goes from our property out to 275. It doesn't touch 275. There's a gentleman that owns a sliver of land between us and 275, probably 100 feet. So Duke wants to use our property to stage their construction equipment on Summerside, and then also cut a 30-foot wide path for their construction equipment through our property back to the pipeline underneath 275. They want to begin January 1st, and they'll finish, they're saying, 3 or 4 month project. So what it means for us is you will be asked in October, late October, at the board meeting to pass a temporary construction easement, granting Duke the ability to use our property temporarily for this project. The representative I met with today has already begun talking to some of the neighbors about the impact on their property, which is honestly minimal. I walked the entire length of the proposed construction site with Roger Thornburg, and the only big problem is where they want to put this 30-foot swath borders right up against 3 properties. So Jessica, the representative from Duke, will talk to those homeowners. They're gonna clear cut all the trees and shrubs out so that they can get their equipment back there. So the homeowners will be afforded the ability, at Duke's cost, to replace trees behind their property. They'll get to choose pretty much how many trees they want, and Duke will pay that. Our impact is at the entrance to the construction site where they're gonna cut back through the woods, they're gonna have to clear cut that, and so for us, they're gonna cover up that construction entrance with probably 7 to 10 trees that we can choose, and they'll pay for that too. So the proposal has been sent to our attorney. Our attorney's in touch with Duke's attorney. I think we're gonna ask Jessica to come to a board meeting to present to you their proposal. She showed it to me today. It's very clear and concise. The beauty of this is, for the neighbors, if we would not grant them access or they could not use our property, then they would have to go through the subdivision and impact those families' yards. So by going through our school property, that is it's not a problem for them. It's really not a problem for us. They agreed to work with Summerside on all events, start and stop times to stay away from that. They're gonna clean the road each night, the driveway each night from construction debris or mud or whatever happens. The site's will be completely fenced off to our specifications to keep people off of it. They're thorough, they're leaving no stone unturned to make it right for us. The only issue that may come up is how we pay for the landscaper to actually plant the trees on our property for those neighbors. It's not a big problem. Dan brought it up today as a concern, but the attorneys will work that out. So any questions about that? This is pretty much brand new news.
Yeah, we just wanted to plant that seed with you today. We will provide some more updates, and as you said, we'll bring in the representative from Duke so you can get all of your questions asked before a decision would have to be made.
Do we know how far away from the actual school and the playground their equipment and such would
It's
be?
completely on the other side. As you drive up to Summerside, there's the school sign right there. That's gonna be their construction entrance, right at that sign. And there's kind of a bubble that goes out and then back towards the woods. So it'll be fenced off. It won't impact the playground, children, staff at all.
I would be very hesitant if there would have been places for them to kind of hang out for lunch, and now they're watching the playground and
No.
things like that, so.
Now, the only impact will be their nature trail. It'll be closed. They offered to leave it open and have access to it, but, and you can correct me if you want, but my thought was that would cause the kids and the teachers to have to walk down that sidewalk actually across the construction site. So if the sidewalk cracked or damaged, kid trips, falls, whatever, there's a problem there. So our proposal is just to close it for it's winter time anyway.
So Chuck, you said this was taking place sometime if we allowed it in
In
January. Again, thinking ahead, but you may already be doing this, I know Milford was doing some construction, they actually hit a pipe and had to evacuate a lot of the areas. So planning ahead that if something happened, where would we and our kids had to be displaced, where would we put them? Would we go to a different school? Just planning ahead so that if that does happen, we've already got a good game plan.
Yes, sir, we're gonna have all that laid out in
Yeah.
our contingency plans, which we'll present to you. How they're gonna do this, though, they're not gonna impact the existing pipe at all. They're gonna burrow a tunnel 10 feet away from that pipe, put a new pipe in, connect it to existing underground pipes on either side of 275, and then they call deactivate the existing pipe, just turn it off. So they won't come anywhere near that pipe to avoid
Okay,
problems like that.
okay.
So, well, you know how construction goes, though. Sounds good. So we'll see. But yes, sir, we'll have contingency plans for all emergencies, if that would happen.
Does the school use the nature trail
They
very
do.
much? In
She
the
does.
winter?
I don't know how much in the winter. I really don't know.
Lisa would have to say for sure, but probably not.
So they could go somewhere else if they had to? for whatever the
They
activities
could
are.
climb their rock wall inside the gym.
Right,
Pretend.
right, indoor nature.
Yes.
So I think it'll be fine. I didn't see anything today that raised a red flag. There's some details to be covered by the attorneys and our treasurer, of course, and Mrs. Adams, but I don't think there's anything drastic that they're asking us to do.
So back to the main topic, before we have any more discussion, I wanted to start with an easy question for both of you. What time do you wake up every day? 5:15. And what time do you go to bed every night? 8:30. Okay, so tell us, I know last year you guys were surveyed at the middle school. What do you think about this recommendation that the committee has made to adjust that start time and push it back to at least 8 o'clock?
I believe pushing it back to 8 o'clock could give students more time for their brains to function in the morning. That extra 45 minutes to get ready and get breakfast and have something in your system could really help impact your education.
You think a lot of kids just kind of skip over all that?
I believe most kids are probably waking up like 20 minutes before they need to be at the school building, and I think that extra 30, 45 minutes getting ready could really impact them.
What are you thinking, Caitlin?
I agree with him. Definitely pushing it back would give their minds more time to wake up and focus better.
Board, I know it's a decision you'll be making down the road, but do you have any questions for the students that are here regarding middle school start time or what that impact might be? I know they will be off into the high school. This is a future decision, but
So in your first class, do the kids kind of sit there and stare?
Yeah, most of
A
the
lot.
kids, first class, half of them are dozing off, and some of them just aren't entirely functioning. So just giving them that extra time could really make everybody more awake and more energy flowing and just body movement more.
And I teach at Bethel High School, and a few years ago during COVID, we started at 7:10, completely different than 7:45 now. Even for me. I guess I've been around teenagers too much in my life because I sleep like they do. And my brain functions better at 8 o'clock.
First period, he's asleep.
As a parent of a recent graduate, I always encouraged the selection of classes to not include math, English in the first thing in the morning because there was no learning occurring. Do something like art or something else that is, say, less impactful, but more mind stimulating, and you're not able to sleep while you're doing art or something along those things, you know. So I appreciate your comments.
As a parent of a kid who wakes up at 6 o'clock, it's miserable.
it's official. Our next topic for tonight that I think you guys will want to maybe weigh in on is attendance. And so before I turn it over to Mr. Dool to share, I'm just curious, well, we're trying to look at the data and the information that we're seeing about who's coming to school, who's not coming to school. Because I have to say, I'm a little bit afraid that some kids are voting with their feet, not showing up, not interested in what's happening in the day-to-day. And so I'm just curious, based on what you guys are seeing around the middle school, do you see regular attendance as a challenge? Are you seeing some kids that just seem totally not with the program, not interested in what we have to offer?
I definitely believe that some kids are there and ready for their education and they know what's there for them. And then just the other half isn't entirely understanding with what they have and the importance of showing up and being there and putting in the time and effort.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Were you going to add something, Caitlin?
I just completely agree with them.
We're going to get to some of the root causes of just trying to better understand why people aren't coming, because we have to know if we're not providing what kids need, what's going to engage them and keep them in there, we've got to think differently. We've got to, look at programs like web or other things that are going to maybe support them better. So I know you have a story to tell of what we're seeing, what the trends are across the district, so take it away.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to give you an update as to where we are with student attendance. So building upon what we just heard from our two student representatives, what does the data show with the current state of affairs for the district? Looking first at our overall attendance rates, what's apparent obviously with West Clermont, as with all school districts across the nation right now, our overall attendance has dropped. While we're still above 90%, which is a good percentage to be at, we're not sustaining at the levels that we once had, and we're not growing. Why is that? let's look at data with regard to what we would consider chronic absenteeism in our school district. You can see that for students who are determined to be chronically absent, that rate has grown to 30% over years past. Post-pandemic, this has been a national problem that we're struggling with. Chronic absenteeism, by this definition, is those students who attended school for less than 90% of available school days. So for 30% of our students, they are not getting anywhere near the level of instruction that they should be to be prepared social, emotionally, academically, or for those other indicators that we've identified as being important outcomes for them. Are we different than the state? No. Our trend lines actually almost exactly mirror where the state of Ohio is with regard to students who are chronically absent. That doesn't mean that we can sit back on our heels and not do something different, because obviously the things that we have been doing have not been enough for our students, just as they haven't been enough for students across the country. How do we tackle this? It's a very complex problem that will entail a very complex strategy to be able to address. Let's look at some of what we know about root causes, and then look at what our plan is going forward so that we can better address what's happening in our district. First, there are some systemic causes that are fairly easy for us to be able to rectify. For example, in the past, the way we dealt with student absenteeism, truancy, has been mainly a disciplinary model. For example, students were identified as not coming to school, were referred to the quote-unquote truancy officer. Letters might be sent home, intervention plans developed to some degree, referrals made to juvenile court, all of this under House Bill 410, which is great, although still disciplinary in nature, not as focused on complex multidisciplinary intervention that ultimately would address the myriad of different reasons why students aren't coming to school. So as I've stated, that it really limited what that multidisciplinary approach could do, because we were sending the issue off to somebody else to deal with, if that makes sense. Speaking to some of the conversation we've had here this evening, we know that attendance intervention works best when it does follow a tiered approach. By tier, we mean what are we doing for all students? Web, Link Crew, Caring School Community, our social emotional curriculum that we have, kindergarten through 8th grade. Those are all things that we are engaging in, coupled with our PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports programs in schools, to create school environments that are inviting, engaging, where students want to be. The academics that we are looking to enrich also speak to that. What pathways are we giving students? What opportunities are we giving students to learn in ways that are important for them and that speak to where they want to be when they leave us? So those are the general things that we do. And then also looking at how do we begin to target needs for students, smaller groups of students that have specific needs, and then even individualized intervention plans for students. So that's what we haven't been able to do as well by focusing on truancy as a disciplinary process. Some other systemic needs, I think, from what I have been able to dig into and as others have looked at the situation, there are some things that we just haven't coded perhaps in the right way in EMIS, our state student information system, that we can clean up. So part of our data may be unfairly categorizing some students as being chronically absent. For example, students receiving education in another location. We've got students who might be hospitalized, for example, who are receiving instruction from the school district where that hospital program might be. Rather than coding them as absent, we should be coding them as being instructed at another location. Students who have chronic medical conditions, who could benefit from intermittent medical home instruction, and being coded as receiving that instruction at another location versus being counted as absent from school. Those are some systemic practices that we can begin to engage in to better capture not just student attendance, but wrapping good supports around kids, which is really critical. Knowing when we have data that a student's moved out of state, yet we hold on to that student until we get the records request, which is what we're typically asked to do. But we need to be a little more assertive, perhaps, when we have data, to document that data and then go ahead and withdraw that student rather than leave them on the books for months on end before we really get a records request from another district, because we might not get that. Another example, students who've moved to homeschooling. My administrative assistant just sent a new list to schools asking them to go in and withdraw students that we've now received information that they've been homeschooled. So tightening up that process and making sure we go back and assure that those students in fact have been withdrawn, because we have documentation that they're now being homeschooled. And then finally, for students who travel out of the country, we do have that happen, unfortunately, quite a bit. If you're going to be gone for 1 or 2 or 3 months, we're going to withdraw you and you'll have to go through re-enrollment, so that we're not taking an attendance hit just to save your spot.
When we did see more absences like that, maybe not to other countries, which we are used to seeing, but just like maybe going to Florida because the parents could work from another location for multiple weeks at a time, that we hadn't seen before.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You had mentioned that if a student perhaps hasn't been to class for 5 or 6 weeks, to simply disenroll them in the district?
If we have data, like we have verification from multiple sources that a family has moved out of state or has withdrawn to home instruction or home schooling or something along those lines, if we have that data, we can document that data. We might not ever get a records request. We had students last year that I came across that were on the books the entire year as being absent, and people had received multiple times information that they were out of state or might have gone out of the country. Well, how long do we hang on to those students when we have data that speaks otherwise?
Aren't we concerned, though, that children could get lost in the program, though? Meaning that if a parent, the law requires them to go to school.
Sure.
What happens if we unenroll them and they aren't really enrolled anywhere else? Are we really doing the child service there?
I think there's a difference between not doing due diligence to really understand where students might be versus not following up and not collecting that information and then withdrawing. I don't think anyone would advocate just withdrawing, but if we have solid information from various sources that a student might be somewhere else, we can't keep them on the books indefinitely.
No, I understand that.
So I'm assuming like with all of our wraparound services and like what we do is that you're doing home visits, you're
Yes.
checking with letters, you're checking with grandparents, you're making phone calls. You're not just going in the system and saying, oh, they've not been here for 10 days, take them out.
Got it.
You're doing something to ensure, the child you're living here, you're calling that school district, hey, are these kids enrolled? Or there are steps that we're taking before we just unenroll them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Got it.
Right.
Thank you.
That
This
helps
has just
to-
become so much bigger than it used to be, though, through COVID.
Yeah.
And schools chasing and looking for missing children. I mean, it's a huge national phenomenon, really.
Absolutely.
It's not just here.
And we're able to, within EMIS, the challenge becomes when they move to a district beyond a public school district in Ohio. Lustall is able through EMIS to have reports, and those will become available here later on in the month, where we're able to see students who were previous West Clermont students who have enrolled in other Ohio public districts, and we're able to cross-check. But unfortunately, those systems don't work with private or parochial schools or schools out of state. And so that's when a lot of those things become even more, important and paramount.
Right, and you run into the problem where mom gives custody to grandma who's gonna keep her for 3 months, and then, so it becomes very,
Convoluted.
It does.
and there comes your, when we know a student's living in a neighboring district in another district, we send a letter to that district with the address that we have done our due diligence on to say, hey, Mike is living in your district at this address, just so we can expedite the process there.
And then you document everything that you've done so that
Right.
there's a paper trail. Got it.
And then the second piece to it is that's why the re-registration process is so important. And we're gonna start a few weeks earlier next year, probably in April, is to know what students we have to continue to look for who is planning to come back. So
Yeah.
some of those things that we're working on too, to tighten it up.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate all of this conversation. I would hate for us just to be doing something to make our numbers look better.
Well, the concern that you raised is a valid concern, and I think it's a concern that many of us have had conversations about.
Sure.
We don't just want to lose track of students, we want to be able to do our due diligence, which we have been. But at a certain point, some of those students, when we have enough data, we have to make that decision.
Sure, I appreciate that.
So we don't end up with a situation where a student's been absent the entire year. That shouldn't happen.
Thank you.
Some of the other root causes looking at, there are countless reasons in terms of student needs why they might not be attending school. One that we just talked about was start time and how difficult it is for some students to get up out of bed, and to what degree is that having an impact. I would say for many students that's a valid concern. What are their health and mental health needs, their familial and social services needs, lack of resources, food, shelter, transportation. I've had conversations in the last week where students have not been coming to school for reasons such as dental care and being embarrassed about some dental issues that they have going on, or clothing, et cetera. So that's where we then have to shift our focus and look at how do we all take ownership for each and every one of these students, identify what their needs are, and then be able to target how we intervene with that in a way that's different from discipline and sending it off to the truancy officer, because that doesn't lead to positive outcomes for students.
Well, and before you leave that slide, I'm just wondering from you two, Caitlin and Cameron, if you think of there's those bullets up there, health, family issues, maybe needing some resources. Can you think of other reasons why you think maybe people aren't coming that maybe is not listed there?
Maybe something like they were being bullied or something, being treated not how they like.
Following on what she said, definitely bullying being one of the biggest things across schools, just anywhere.
Yeah.
Bullying is a big reason that mental health starts, and mental health is a really important part of your education system. As a host squad leader in the program, I've watched kids go through the mental health struggles. But at West Clermont, I feel like they know that they have many valuable resources such as counseling and host squad leaders, and even their teachers that care about them.
Absolutely.
But mental health is definitely one of the biggest sources of not showing up to school. Bullying is what needs to happen.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well said. So what is our plan? We have to do better at engaging multidisciplinary teams at the building level, to identify causes, to develop needed interventions. Building teaming using structures and tools that we have available, with support from both district and community resources. For example, we now have 2 resource coordinators who we have had the fortune to have assigned to us through JFS funding, temporary assistance for needing families, that bring a social service lens to that multidisciplinary approach. So understanding things from the standpoint of what do families need to be able to meet their daily living requirements in order to then be able to focus on school. Improved processes for identifying and providing supports for students experiencing things like homelessness or placement in foster or kinship care. We have an astounding number of families that have students living with other family members. That requires a different lens to be able to help provide the services that they need in order to get them to school. And then finally, how do we bring this all together? How do we work with our stakeholders to make this a concerted effort that we all have responsibility for? You've heard us talk about our selection to participate in the Ohio Whole Child pilot school cohort. This is a grant that we wrote an application for to the state, and we're one of 10 districts selected to partner with the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development to tap into their international expertise to assist us in the strategic planning that we've been engaging around some of these topics, as well as providing some ongoing professional development. So what we're going to do at this point is frame attendance as a problem of practice, as a focus for formally launching the Whole Child Network as we've been discussing, which would engage our school-based and community resources, and doing so around the topic of how do we work as a group to address student attendance. You mentioned mental health. Right on. We know that we have a community-wide problem, whereas we cannot find enough therapists to meet the needs of our adults, let alone the needs of our students. How do we work with our community providers, Child Focus, Presley Ridge, and others to find, hire, and assign, and then provide supports for therapists to work with our students? That's a massive undertaking in and of itself, but one that we as a school district have to partner well with those community providers to do, because that is a major impediment to many kids coming to school, just as an example. How do we better utilize the Health Source of Ohio, our Wolves Wellness Center, to meet the physical needs, the health needs of our students? That has gone astoundingly underutilized by our families and even our staff members who could have access to that. How do we promote that? How do we get them to engage with that? Because only by doing these types of things are we going to be successful. Attendance, as we've talked about, is really the curriculum-based measure we're using, because that speaks to so many other underlying needs that we have to do better as a community in addressing. And we have to do it as a community. It's not just a school problem, if that makes sense.
And we say we value relationships. It's the R of RISE, and it can be something as simple as, I am part of this team and I miss you when you're not there, so I call you and say, I missed you, Tammy. Like, we missed you when you weren't there. Just that little personal touch. Not some person from another school district calling you saying they missed you, but like somebody that's part of this team. And I think it's that personalization that we just want to step up a notch.
Aren't you, my memory serves me, we've discussed this at one of our other meetings, that we're trying to do that at the high school, that there was a group of kids that.
The link crews.
No, there was a group of kids that
Oh.
staff just didn't even know them. Like, it was just these kids, and so it's bringing them together, it's my understanding is
Well, there might be something I don't know about, but there is a concerted effort to make sure that we know every kid's name, that we know every kid's story, that we are understanding, what are their strengths, what makes them tick, and I don't know, but I'm not sure if you're referencing.
It may not be it may not be a program, I'm just saying it was just trying to get to know, and that would circle back to this, just getting to know kids and getting to know.
But the whole
Continue to
reason, the whole reason to shift this from a disciplinary process to a multidisciplinary problem-solving team is because those are the people who should know those kids.
Sure.
The truancy officer doesn't. And so when developing an intervention plan, he or she really has nothing to go on to wrap those supports around. So we have to build that, and it's going to take us a minute as we build that. I know there's a little bit of anxiety about, we got to get this done now, and we do, but it's going to, true systemic change takes a bit of time as we pull those pieces together, but it will come together. I think there's enough commitment in this district and in this community to see that happen. And this is the path.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So Cameron and Caitlin, now that you've been able to listen to some of this, I'm just curious if you think there's any issues that maybe we didn't talk about tonight regarding attendance and what engages kids in coming to school. Is there something you think we should look further into as we look at the causes and then maybe some of the solutions? You guys have any thoughts?
I like everything I heard tonight.
Okay.
I just believe the attendance is somewhat a lack of motivation to want to show up every day.
You agree, Caitlin? Yeah.
And the mental health problems just is one of the biggest things around.
Do you have a recommendation on how we can motivate students?
Well, being a part of the building since the 6th grade, all the teaching and staff have made me feel welcome just walking in. A simple good morning can really boost your day. But with how many resources we have in West Clermont, I couldn't see what we're not doing for students to show up.
Well,
Love it.
the young man is reading my mind.
Right.
How many times, I think in the last 2 months, I've said, it's not about bringing in more and spending more. It's about better utilizing the resources that we have. Because we have an immense amount of resources, save for the lack of therapists available, that sort of thing, that we know we need to address.
Do you think it's, I mean, this may go along with better utilizing, but do you think it's lack of knowledge of those resources available?
That's part of the problem, yes.
Well, and in a district that we're very conservative on our spending, it costs nothing to say good morning. Or to
Absolutely.
greet children at the
So-
doorway with a smile, or just,
Looking at
We're all about
the top,
those
looking at research of the 250 influences that we know lead to outcomes for students, the number one influence is what we call teacher self-efficacy, the belief that they can teach and make a mark on that student. The number 11 cause is student self-efficacy. So what you're speaking to is a student's belief that they can succeed and that they can do it. It doesn't cost us anything to do those things. It costs us the ability to own those students and that need and to do something about it.
I'm gonna add two things. Eric did a great job working with our grant writer to write a federal grant for $1 million that we haven't heard yet, but could offer us 3 positions for therapists for 3 years. So we're very hopeful for that grant now finding that person might be the big
Yeah, that's
challenge.
what I said, like, we could find them.
Yeah.
Well, if you can offer a competitive wage in mental health, I mean, that's a factor.
we could recruit some.
And then to your point, Mr. Patton, I was looking at Christy and Randy. 95% of our kids met one-on-one with our counselors last year, Christy, to develop their schedule? So talk about one-on-one time with a counselor to build a schedule that you want. Like, to have those conversations around that, I think, has made a huge impact, what I'm talking to Christy about. Am I correct in that, Christy? Like,
Yeah, we have the fewest number of requests for schedule changes or errors that we've ever had. And the counselors are getting ready to meet with every senior one-on-one over the next month.
wow.
So this is super.
So we added two counselors to the mix of the high school.
And now they can do that.
And now they can do that. So all that kind of, in my opinion, plays into kids wanting to come to school, have those people that are, hey, know your story, know your name, know your story, know your strengths. I think that we have to tie all that in together as well.
Another opportunity that we've just kind of stumbled into through Family and Children's First Council of Clermont County. There's a group called the Appalachian Children Council. They have a behavioral health workforce that's looking at what can be done to recruit and retain and match mental health providers in Appalachian counties in Ohio. We're going to submit what we wrote for that Department of Justice Stop School Violence grant to them to see if they would partner with us. They had mentioned being able to partner with mental health agencies, but why not a school district? There's nothing that would prevent that. So we've talked briefly about potentially doing that as well.
Well, and speaking of that workforce thing, to wrap time up with you guys, I'm just curious if you've thought about your future, about how you want to change the world, what kinds of things that you're interested in as you kind of go through high school and beyond.
Just like in the future, what I
Yeah.
In my future, I have a couple plans, but my first is definitely to go into law school and become a lawyer. And to just fight for whatever case I have to go through.
Okay. Caitlin?
I want to go to college and become a doctor because I love helping people in need.
I was going to sign you both up to be mental health therapists because you've said that you're passionate for this.
We can have a social welfare lawyer and a child psychiatrist
Yeah.
to be able to provide medications.
Well, we are so excited to be part of your story and wish you the best as you go through the school and just want to keep providing opportunities for you to tap into those interests and those passions that you have. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Anything else?
Just thank you for the opportunity to do this job.
I have a quick note about our counselors, actually, just so you can understand how special they are. Like, while they made the space to talk to our students, like, they do carry, you know, like the recommended caseload for them would be like 160 some students, let's say. Their caseloads are in the 300s and the 400s. So, and they're still like managing to find a way to make this happen. But our needs are continuing to, they're not decreasing anytime soon. And so I just want to make voice like to that, to a realistic picture of what a Goliath level effort it is on their part to make something like that happen, given that they're really not operating at like the recommended level of caseload. So, even with our additional 2 counselors at each building.
Yes, thank you.
Are we gonna dismiss them, or are they?
If you guys have homework to do, you can probably go now.
Well, I wanted
You
to,
probably
before we
do.
dismiss
Okay,
them, I
yes.
wanted to say that this is my 11th year on the board, and I have constantly said, we are here to serve you. And I love hearing your opinions on things and being involved in the process tonight, and thank you for that. And commend you for serving in that role at the middle school, and remind you that next year you'll be low man on the totem pole again. But they have that link crew that do exactly what you're doing at the middle school to do at the high school. And if you retain that memory of how you feel coming out of the high school, or out of the middle school, you'll serve in that role as seniors to the incoming freshmen. So congratulations, and thank you for all you do.
11 going on 16, right?
Right, 11 going on 16.
Yes.
I do appreciate you guys being here and the families as well for having and sitting and appreciate this. The input was very useful and helpful for us as we make decisions as we move forward.
You're both very well spoken. I'm very impressed with that.
Absolutely.
I don't think I was that well spoken as an 8th grader.
I'm still not.
And it's astute observations, both of you.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
all right.
Finally, for me, that superintendent comments, I just wanted to call to your attention something exciting. We got news today on our board agenda that Paula Blatt is going to be retiring, which is certainly a loss, but something that's going to happen really cool here in the next, I guess, is it the next week? Channel 12 is coming because she is Educator of the Week at Merwin Elementary. So we get to celebrate Paula as she is going out as a star, right, in her final year. So we're excited about that. I don't have anything else for you guys tonight. You guys have questions for me?
I was wondering, do you do much PD with mental health for staff?
We do. It kind of comes in waves, and I don't think we've done any this school year, right?
Not
In a like hot
explicitly.
second, we've been
Well, I know,
here.
I know we've had some meeting this year. I'm not sure there's been anything this year.
Well,
We've had trauma-informed
Yeah.
care kinds of programming, QPR training, and so I don't know what you have on the dockets coming up.
We're
We're still
actively-
working on
I
that?
would say most of our support this year is in the form of a contract that we have with both Hamilton and Clermont County Educational Service Centers with BCBAs who are, see if I can remember what they're essentially like behavior analysts who are board certified behavior analysts who are working to support teachers and administrators as they support students who are exhibiting challenging behaviors. And so that's really, and so they're components of their work, and they're going to be offering professional development for staff over the course of the year.
You know
So I'd say
how it is with PD, it's like it's on election day, but maybe you don't have that problem on election day or the day after, you have it on, Thursday. And so you need that, I need to phone a friend right now. And so we're trying to embed those kinds of supports to give more on the job training and kind of support in a crisis. I think we're gonna continue to expand our repertoire of options for staff because it's getting more and more complicated. Each case, it's like we're learning by doing right now in many, many ways.
Many of our staff do participate in, it's not broad mental health training per se, but targeted to the stakeholders that we're working with. As an example, in August, we pulled our school psychs, our school counselors, and our school nurses together to follow up on suicidal ideation and incorporate some safety planning around that. So back in May, we trained our school psychologists in use of the Columbia Suicidal Severity Rating Scale, and we wanted to bring the other team members in so that we can have a common way in which we implement safety planning for students who have noted suicidal ideation, whether they come to us through Hope Squad or through other means to identify a student at risk. So those examples exist all over the place for different types of things.
Well, and you've been doing the crisis prevention intervention, or for the institute
CPI.
work, the CPI work with some of our classified staff as well this year.
Absolutely,
So-
which entails also understanding the precipitating factors that might be impacting student behavior, one of which is obviously mental health needs and being aware of that and how to utilize that information to know how to verbally de-escalate and engage with that individual. So it does happen. I think there's not been a district-wide training per se, but more targeted for the needs of stakeholders.
One of our pillars for Citizens Advisory Commission, this year, student and staff safety and well-being, communication, physical and operational and safety, but then also training, professional development. So hopefully we'll have some recommendations from them around what trainings we need, where's our gaps, that type of thing. Not only for staff, but for students and parents as well, because this is a community-wide initiative, let's say. We're not going to solve it all by ourselves, so what are some of the things that we would love every parent to be trained in, right? Or staff member and things like that. So that's a big piece of what we're working on in the CAC.
It just seems to me, not that I want to add work to anybody's plate, because we're all overworked, but classroom teachers could really do a lot if they have a good relationship with kids.
We often say, like, you kind of feel like sometimes like you have a paper plate and then you want to kind of move up to a chinette plate. You want to make it sturdier, and then you want to get your plate to like a piece of china that's solid. And so we're always just trying to, like, we know teachers have a lot on their plate, but we just want to get that base, that plate, stronger and stronger and stronger. So it takes time and consistency. One of the things too that Mr. Overby is going to be bringing in, we recently connect with the National Organization of CPI, it's Crisis Prevention Institute. The CEO of the company came to meet with some of our team members and are very interested in what we're doing here at West Clermont and want to come back and work with us some more. So we've been kind of recognized nationally for some of the efforts here, and they want to help us continue them. So I think that gives us some potential that, who knows what tapping into that will provide for our district. But they are going to work with CAC, or the CAC. So, well, you guys are welcome to stay here and listen, or you're welcome to go and finish your homework, whatever works best for you. But again, we are just so grateful.
Run away.
I know. Yeah, run while you can. I'll just turn it over to you. Treasurer comments.
No comments from our office this evening.
Okay.
I like her. Board comments.
Board comments, Mrs. Brinkman?
The only thing I want to acknowledge is I have heard nothing but great things for the start of the school year. Teachers are all happy, administrators seem to be happy, students are all happy, and I think we've launched another successful school year. Thank you for you and your entire team's support with that. Nice job.
Okay. Mr. Chumley?
Yeah, apologize for my tardiness. Terrible clock management.
It's the best of us.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible. Mrs. Blad, I want to comment on that. My oldest has her for her last year, so I'm glad I got to get her before she got out of here. She's been great. I've really enjoyed what she's been doing with him, so she definitely deserves that award. I really love the investment, hearing the investment in all our kids. Every time I come here, it just gives me a lot of joy and a lot of encouragement. So I just love our team that we have, and I'm just super proud of everything we do.
First, I love these meetings. A lot of good information comes out. Again, I think we kind of skimmed over this. This was not skimmed, but as far as I didn't get a comment, this is good stuff. I think this will be very useful when it goes out to the community to continue to inform them of what we're doing. Sometimes I think people, I won't say struggle, but trying to find where this information is, and so we have given it to them. And so I think this is good stuff. Your team has done a great job putting this all together and making it. Chuck has done a great job with the study, and hopefully, and let me back up even more with the start time to the middle school. That the team that we had that did that.
The advisory.
Yeah, they did a great job. I mean, they did a really I mean, they really put a lot of work into that, and so they did a great job with that, and so we're just gonna continue that, and see where that lands. And so-
What I'll add, I don't think I've said it at this room, but 100% of the, well, minus one person who's no longer in the district, they all came back to be part of the Citizens Advisory next year. And, you know, they signed up for a 2-year commitment, they could have said, no, thank you, and they didn't. They came back, and they were excited.
I attended that meeting a couple of times, and I mean, like, they were giving it their all, like, they really was putting a lot of effort into this, and like, really, so again, commenting on that, so just, again, overall, your team has done a great job with just getting the information and these types of stuff, and so it's hard to thank everybody, and you know that if you thank this person, you'll miss this person, so as a whole, your team has done a great job with just all of the information, so to piggyback off of both of these guys have said, I've heard nothing but a great start to the year, both in all of the buildings. And so I continue this momentum of moving forward, and so I appreciate everybody's work.
Okay. Mrs. Delaney?
First, I'd like to, thank Cameron and Caitlin for coming, today, because you guys are the reason why we're here. And I can see you're gonna be back before us later on in your high school career, because you guys are gonna be leaders of the team for sure. Keep doing what you're doing, help the others that everybody needs help at times, just keep your hand out there and say, I'm here to help, and others will grab on and ride along with you. To talk about the CAC, 2 weeks ago, was our first meeting for the safety and wellness. And, Mr. Patton, if you were impressed by the middle school start time committee, come to this topic, because I think all of us that were there, we walked out of that room and our members immediately dove in. I mean, the passion, the wherewithal, you know, we have got a lot of work to do in a very short period of time, and there were no questions asked. They just dove right in and just right there to figure out the world's problems. I mean, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, and I'm so very thankful to be a part of that. Great beginning of school year so far, hearing great things about the middle school, so thanks to you and your team. Keep it going, and really, really excited for the next few weeks. To our community members, when you get this lovely thing, please pay attention to our town hall meetings. If you can't find the information in here and you can't find it on the website, come and join us, because it's a hand-holding experience. We're all learning. And we want your opinion, because your opinion matters, and it makes us better. So I've already sent out to my Facebook page to invite people, so come join us. It really is, it's worth your time.
I was, again, very impressed with you too, especially when you were talking about mental health. That is in my head all the time as a teacher. I'm glad that you recognize the situation. And I love how West Clermont is doing all these wonderful things. It's exciting. That's been my word this year. I get very excited in every meeting. So thank you all. Okay, anything else?
We do need to go into executive session.
Yes, we do. We need to go into executive session. There's a recommendation to withdraw to executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect? Okay, Mr. Chumley, a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Mr. Patton, any discussion? And we do not expect any.
We won't be coming back.
Okay. So we'll be closing the meeting. All right?
We do need to vote, though.
Yes, Ms. Druford?
Just make sure.
Mrs., I should say.
Yeah.
Ms.?
Mrs.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
And Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Thank you.
I do have a note, the Board of Education work session meeting previously scheduled for Monday, October 10th has now been rescheduled to Wednesday, October 12th at 6 p.m. change was made due to October 10th being designated as a professional development day for staff, and no school is scheduled for students.
And so that, we have another business meeting before that one, but that's a new change, and we wanted to make sure that we got that out there. Our next official meeting, though, is September 26th, back in this room at 7 o'clock. Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for attending.
And we need to come at 6.